Welcome. In this video I'm going to be doing a tire rotation on a 2016 Subaru Outback. So these instructions should be about the same for 2015 through 2019. So I have the car parked on a level surface and I have the parking brake on. And I'm going to talk about different safety things here and there, but this isn't meant to be a comprehensive safety video. And if you feel uncomfortable doing this, maybe have a friend help you the first time. So the couple of tools I'm going to be using here, I have a flex head ratchet and I have a 19mm deep socket, and I'll put a link in the description to this socket and some flex head ratchets on Amazon. If you use those links, it helps me out a little bit and doesn't cost you anything extra. I also have this Tecton 1/2-inch drive torque wrench too, and I'll put a link down below too to this. And then other things I have is I have a 3-ton floor jack, a piece of cardboard just to protect my knees, and I have 4 jack stands. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and loosen all the lug nuts just a little bit while the car is on the ground. So when I loosen these, I do loosen them in a star pattern. I don't know how important that is, so I said to go to 1 and then I go across like I'm drawing a star to loosen them. When you tighten them, you typically tighten in a star pattern, so maybe not a bad idea to loosen them the same way. So next I'll jack up the front end. I'll jack it up and then I'll show you my lift point because it'll be easier with the car in the air. Okay, so I have the front lifted off the ground. I'm going to take my jack stands here, and you want to lift it off quite a bit. Actually, I may give this another little push here. When you lift the back, it'll put the front down a little bit. So we're going to take our jack stands, and you'll see this little indentation here. These little notches. I don't know if that's showing up on camera. There we go. You see these little notches here. You want to put the jack stand right in the middle of those. And you see there's probably, well, I don't know if you can see that, there's about a 1/4 inch that it's going to lower, so you'll know the tire is going to go down another 1/4 inch. I'll do that on both sides. Now I'll slowly lower the jack. That was probably a little faster than I wanted to. So I jacked it up right here on this piece of metal under the front. I just stuck the jack in there, so I had the rear wheels locked, the brakes on. I jacked it up here until the wheels were off the ground, and I put the 1 jack stand under each side on that front pinch weld. And you may need to jack the front end up just a little more than you think, because when you lift the rear end up, this front is going to drop down a little bit because there's a pivot here. So, you know, I may run into a situation where when I lift that up, these aren't up high enough. Sometimes you can kind of pry them off. Other times you have to jack the front up again. So now I'm going to move to the rear and jack the rear up. Okay, I'm at the rear of the car. I don't know if I mentioned, I like to use a piece of cardboard. I don't have a creeper I can lay down on this. So here I'm going to lift it up by the differential. And some people will put like a rubber hockey puck or a piece of wood in there, but my jack's pretty wide here, so I don't really use those. I don't know if I mentioned, this is a 3-ton floor jack. Okay, so I can see that this wheel here is off the ground, this one is too. And this one looks like it's barely touching, so I think I'll be able to get that off. Maybe. I'm going to put my jack stands back here between that knot. So that's going to lower down about 1/2 inch. And these jack stands have these little pins you can put in here. And if I was getting under the car, I'd probably use these. I'm not going to. But because I'm making a video and I want people to be safe, I'm going to say use these pins. So I'm going to lower it down on these jack stands now. So I'll do this very slow. I'm going to put the phone down so I can have better control over this lever here. Okay, so I twisted this and lowered it down. Then I tightened it back up. So what I like to do is leave this jack in place with tension on it. So the weight is resting on these, but the jack is kind of a secondary then. So now that I have these off, I'll grab my wrench and I'll start taking lug nuts off. So I've loosened up these lug nuts. So with this flex head wrench, you can turn this and use it kind of like a bit and brace. I'll show you how. What I like to do is leave the last, or the bottom lug for last. If you take this off, the wheel can pull out at the bottom, and then it can kind of bind up the other lug nuts. It's harder to take off. So usually I'll take the bottom lug nut off last. So you go on here and just spin it like that. Okay, now for this last one, a lot of times I'll put my foot up against the bottom of the tire so it doesn't pull out while I'm taking these off. Okay, so now you see that came forward a little bit. If I had done these first, it would have bound up these and been harder to take off. So I'm going to do that to all four wheels. Okay, so I have all four wheels loose now. And to do your rotation, the general rule we used to use when I worked in a shop would be that you cross the non-drive tires. So what you would do is treat the Outback as if it was a front-wheel drive car. You take your front wheels and move them to the back on both sides. So this wheel goes right back to here. The rear wheels cross over and go to the front. So this wheel will go to the opposite side front, and then the passenger side rear will come to the driver's side front. So I'll swap all those wheels, and then we'll reinstall the lug nuts. So as you're rotating your tires, this is a good time to check for tire wear and problems with your tire. So if you look here, there's what are called wear bars. It's probably kind of hard to see on camera, but there's in the grooves you'll see these little raised areas. And if your tire tread anywhere along the width of the tread is as low as that, it means you have a bald tire. So you could have a really deep tread on one side, down at the bar on the other, it means your whole tire is considered bald. If you have any punctures in it that are outside of this area, here or here, those are non-repairable. You can only repair in this area in the middle. So you can also look for cracks, checking, you can look on the sidewall. And also while you have the wheel off the car, it's a good time to inspect the car, look at brake lines. That would be a whole nother video. But just the mention here is, look for things that look like they might be wrong and look into them if, you think there could be a problem. So now I'll put the tires back on the car. Okay, I'm going to lift the tire up on the lug nuts here. Remember, this one was the lowest to the ground, so this one could be a little bit trickier than some of the others. Okay, so that one was a little bit trickier. So the opposite of the way I put it on, I like to push the bottom in and get that lug nut on first to make it easier to put the other lug nuts on. The important thing to mention is that you want the back of the wheel flush against the rotor, and you want everything seated properly. Again, I'll go to my flex head ratchet, and I'll start tightening the bottom first, and then I'll tighten in a star pattern. So I like to kind of grab it like this and tighten it about as tight as I can with my wrist there. So, it's relatively tight, but then we'll torque it later once we get it on the ground. Okay, and you can go back around and give it a little bit of tightness. You don't want to crank these down. You want them tight, but you don't want them torqued to spec yet. So I'm going to be doing that to all four wheels. Okay, so I've tightened all the lug nuts by hand, and the main goal there is to make sure they're all seated properly and everything's snug. So when I lower the car, I'll torque them to spec, but I really shouldn't be tightening them where it's actually moving the wheel onto the hub anymore. Everything's seated properly. So since I didn't take this jack out of here, I don't have to line it up again. I just have to jack it up till the rear jack stands will come out. And so now I can lower the rear of the car. And you want to still do this slowly. I'm going to set the camera down. We don't want that to pop off of the front jack stands. So now I'll pull the jack around to the front of the car. Okay, so I'm going to jack up on that central jacking point. I think I'm clear of these jack stands here. Nope, they're still on there, so I'll jack it up a little bit more. I'll let the car down. So now I have all four wheels on the ground and I still have the parking brake on. I'm going to take my torque wrench, and you look in your car manual and it'll tell the torque. I think this one's 88.5. I should probably look this up before I say that on camera, but okay, I'm inserting this in my video, so it's not going to be super smooth, but I looked it up, and on this it is 88.5 foot-pounds of torque. And another thing I forgot to mention is that after approximately 600 miles of driving, you want to check the torque of your wheels. So it says any of the wheels are removed or replaced. Check the tightness of the torque after 1,000 kilometers. And then it says never apply oil to the threaded parts of the wheel nuts or tapered surfaces of the wheel. So if you do have any oil on your threads or anywhere around there, you can take some brake clean and like a toothbrush and just scrub it off and spray it off, because you want your threads to be dry. So I'll take that, I'll tighten it down, and then you want to do a star pattern. You want to put this on there, and you want to press down on the other end until it clicks. You don't want to push it past that point, and you just want to use one hand and one click. So we're going to do that to all four wheels. I'm just going to do the one on camera. Once you do that, you want to open your door here and look on your placard here. And it says the air pressure is supposed to be 35 psi front and 33 psi rear. So since we did rotate the tires, if you had the proper pressure before, they're going to be wrong now. So you'll need to adjust your pressure. And then also you need to mark down your mileage and probably the date of when you did your rotation in whatever kind of log you use. So you can keep track of when you rotated the tires. So that's all I want to do in this video. That's how you rotate tires on a 2016 Subaru Outback. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you like this video, please click like. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate if you do that. And thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.